Alrighty. Hello, I'm Russ Milheim from The Direct. It's great to speak with you both today.
Hi, you too.
Hello.
Congratulations on the show. A really unique Apple TV show that you guys made. So, congrats. I'm excited for everyone to see it.
Thank you. Us too.
Now, I want to start with a fairly simple question. For both of you, what was the most difficult aspect of your respective characters to get right?
Well, I guess I'm kind of a grump. Susie's a grump. No, Rashida's not. Susie's a grump. And I think that maybe just making sure that it was somebody you wanted to spend time with.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, you don't want to spend that much time with grumpy people. So how did I make her vulnerable enough so that there was a way in, that she was relatable and charming in her misanthropic pursuits.
Yeah.
マサは、最初は、
Masa is,
わかりや
in
す
the
い、
beginning,
優
he's
しい
very
夫で優
simple.
し
He's
い
a
父な
very
んですけど
gentle
も、だ
husband,
んだんそうじ
nice
ゃない
father.
面が見
But
え
then
てくるんです
gradually
ね。
you
だ
see
からそ
other
れが
aspects of
僕
him.
自身も、最
And
後のスクリプトまで読んでなかったので、
I
まあ
myself
自分にとっても
didn't read
新しい新
until
鮮
the
な驚き
last
で、まあそれは
script.
楽しかった
So
ですけども、
even for me,
ただ
while
それを見
playing
るた
him,
めに、ま
I
さに
had
こ
these
ういう面があ
fresh
るんだ、まさにこういう面
surprises.
がある
So
んだとい
I
うこ
was
とで、い
discovering
ろん
new
な面
facets
を
or
演じな
new
きゃいけないとか
aspects
ところ
of
が、
Masa,
まあ
and
僕
I
には
had
難
to
しかった
play
です
him, and
ね。
that was very difficult challenging for me to do.
Now, I know that the show is filled with these fun homebots, such as Sunny herself. What was it like working with what I assume was a whole bunch of practical robots on set?
We had a very, very talented robotics team, but it took a village. It took a village to make it seem that kind of seamless on screen, and to make them kind of even make the audience even question if, wow, is this something that's replicating humanity? It wasn't quite that. It wasn't, it wasn't quite as organic as we filmed it. But, there were moments, because you do, ultimately we did have actors playing robots, and that really does, it changes the kind of connection that you can have with an object.
For
僕は
me,
最初本当にこ
in the
う
beginning,
グ
I
リーンの
imagined
顔
that there
の
would
ロ
be
ボッ
a
トがい
robot with a
て、
green
自分の
screen,
中で
and I
想像
thought
し
that
な
I
が
would
ら
have
演
to
じなきゃ
use
いけなかったんですけ
imagination
ど、まあ
to
実際
play
はジョアンナ
against the
さ
character.
ん
But
がリア
actually
ルタ
on
イム
set
で
in
そういう
real
表
time,
情を作って
Joanna
くれ
was
ている
making
の
these
で、
facial expressions real
だからなん
time.
かこう
And so there were
本
moments
当に
where
このロボ
it
サニー
felt
が
like
存在してい
Sunny
るような
really
気持ちになっ
was
て、まあ
present.
とても
So
僕は
for me,
感
it
情移
was
入し
very
やすか
easy
っ
for
たで
me
す
to
ね。
empathize
自
at
分で
that
も驚くぐ
moment.
らい、
And
あ、
then
こ
I
んな
felt
に自
that,
分の
oh,
心が
my
揺れるんだっていう瞬間がたくさんあ
emotions
りま
too
した。
are moved
た
by
だまあ実
interacting
際
with this
撮影
cell.
で
But
撮るときは
actually,
たく
when
さん
we
の角
were
度をこ
shooting,
う
we
撮らなきゃいけない
basically
こと
went
もあっ
shot
た
by
の
shot,
で、
so we had a lot of
ま
takes.
あ
But
僕はそ
I
んなに
didn't
サニ
really
ーとの
have
シーンは多
as
くなかった
many
と思うんですけど、多分
scenes with
ラシ
Sunny.
ダさん
So
とも
for
大変
Rashida,
だ
I
と思
think
う
it
ん
was
で
a
すけど。
big, it was a different story.
Yeah. Now, the world of Sunny is a unique one, but it holds a lot of similarities to our own world. What is your personal favorite quirk that the show, brought to that world?
I guess I really love how, Sunny is appropriately named. She's irritatingly optimistic. And I think that's a really funny way into this world, because, she's supposed to be a reflection of Susie. Susie comes to find out that she's kind of designed for her. And then she's like, why would anybody who knows me decide that this like peppy, perky, boundaryless thing would be the right design for me? And then ultimately it kind of is the right design for her. But I like that she starts out just being this like absolute dreadful annoyance to her. There's something kind of, it's a good place to start. It's like very like John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You have a lot of room to grow from there.
そうですね。まあ本当にこの物語は僕
I
たちの
guess
近
for
い未
this
来に
narrative,
起
for
きる
this
かもしれない
story,
物語
this
で、
kind
ま
of
あ
thing,
今
the story
AI が
can
こうやって
happen
どん
in
ど
our
ん進
near
化してい
future
て、ま
because
あ
we see
AI が
the
本当に
AI
自分
really
の自意識を持
evolving. And if
人間が
AI ends up having its
生
own
き始めた時に
conscience,
人と AI が
and
どうやっ
if
て
AI starts living its
ま
own life,
あ
like
関係を
how
作っ
do
ていくのか。
people
で
and
テクノロジー
AIs
のも
build
ちろんいい面もあり
relationships?
ますけど、
And
同
there's
じ
also good
よう
things
に
about
まあ悪い
technology,
面
but
も
on the
同時
other
にある
side,
わ
we
け
also
で、
have
まあ
the
そういうことを
negatives aspects.
まあ描いている作品だと
So
思い
I
ます。
think
で
we're basically
観
talking about
客
those
見てる皆
issues.
さんはそ
And
の
for the
ドラマを通じ
audience,
てやっぱり
through this
そのことについて
drama,
思いを巡らせると
I
思うん
think
ですよね。
people would start
だから
exploring and
AI の
wonder
こと
about
それをもっ
those
と突き詰める
topics.
と
So once
人
we
とは
dug
何
in
か、
deep
人と人とのつながり
into
は何か、
AI,
人の
it's
魂は
about
何
talking
か
about
っていう
what
ことについ
are
て
what
深
the,
く
what
深
it
く
means to be
考え
human,
る
what
と
are
思いま
human
す。
relationships. I think it talks about a lot of those things.
Congratulations on the show. I watched it all. I thought it was a really unique, fun little tale. One of the things I wanted to touch on is, the world of Sunny is both unique yet eerily familiar to kind of our current existence. Can you talk about how you landed on kind of that final kind of reality and creating the visual style to bring the world to life?
Yeah. So in building Sunny, we wanted a robot who was corporeal, who was not overly humanoid. We didn't want to get into any kind of like uncanny valley territory. We wanted to draw on Japanese lines. So there's like a sort of like sleekness and beauty to her, but also like a kawaii, like very cute, emotionally accessible robot. And then we worked with Weta Workshop to build a practical Sunny puppet that used multiple people to kind of create, but was acted and voiced by Joanna Sotomura. And so we created a sort of like, we didn't create, we have no technical prowess. I mean, Lucy's got a little bit of technical prowess. But we worked with Weta Workshop to create this helmet that was sort of like a motion capture kind of thing, so that Joanna, who plays Sunny, could act in real time and have her face rear projected onto the screen. So it does a version of like when Joanna smiles, Sunny smiles. When Joanna frowns, Sunny frowns. So that in real time, our other actors, Rashida and Hide and Judy, would have a real scene partner, and Lucy could go and give a note to Joanna, and in real time you would see that happening on camera. And that felt so important because this show is about a character who is drawn out from kind of loneliness and isolation by a physical robot. And so we really wanted to have like the authenticity of a real robot in camera on screen.
Yeah, and then I think sort of when we were talking about like the world of the show and the visual style of Sunny the show.
It's confusing when one character.
I know, exactly.
Titular character. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think we were, I think first started to come up with things like the music playlist based off Katie's original outline before there was even a script, and I think that what was so fascinating was this sort of tension between old and new, like this grounded sci-fi show set in this ancient city. And so that's something I think was sort of a North Star for us in all of the sort of various elements from music and costume and color palette. And so music-wise, very much drawn to these sort of Japanese 60s pop that created this tension between this like nostalgic music that was sort of upbeat with these slightly sort of darker scenes that felt very like it was really capturing the tone that we wanted to create. And then I kind of went into these colorful Japanese 60s noir movies by Seijun Suzuki, one of which is Tokyo Drifter, which we paid particular homage to in episode 4. Yeah, and I think like looking at the color palette, like Katie had written that Masa had yellow shoes in just from the outline. Even I think that was there, and then I think we hadn't really settled on the distinct color palette until coming to Japan, and I kept on just seeing like this sort of powder blue, which incidentally ended up being the same color as the Tokyo Drifter suit, which Hide then wears, and so and then the red felt like the sort of fire engine red felt like it was really powerful. So ended up being this sort of primary color palette that felt like an unusual kind of tension between that you wouldn't normally have in a thriller. So this sort of, but it also meant that it was feeling a little bit like I think the family that Susie was losing, like there's something sort of childlike about those colors as well that were sort of dotted around the home. So that sort of ended up like drawing out across the series as our color palette too.
There are lots of obviously lots of stories with, you know, robots and AI, but to you guys, what do you feel Sunny does different than the rest?
I think that there is within Sunny a sense of optimism that I think you don't often see in these kinds of shows and films. The theme of loneliness and isolation was sort of so important in grounding and establishing these characters and what their sort of primal needs were. And so in order to kind of solve that, you need a character, an antidote to that is like has a brightness and a sunniness. And so I think that, you know, I have very complicated feelings about AI. I'm a writer, so like it's, you know, it's a hard moment to be a writer and thinking about like the capacity and potential of AI. And yet like all things, I think that AI is human created. And so, or not like all things, but like things that are human created, it is human created. And so like art, like music, like literature, it has like a piece of us in it. And so thus there is a potential and an optimism to it, and also a danger. And so we're trying to get at both sides of that same coin. But I think that like the sense of optimism and hope like is at the fore in a way that I don't think is always the case with this kind of show.